you ever wondered what goes on in a writer's head, sitting in solitude, quietly writing? Welcome to Oral Tradition and another adventure in Guyanese literature. And this segment we take a look at a psychological thriller horror. Well, it's mixed genre. And let's welcome a multifaceted writer, Jasmaine Payne. Jasmaine, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Mr. Persaud. It's an honor to be here with you.
You're welcome. What was going through your head? I mean, to write a pleasant romance, colorful description, pretty ending, live happily ever after sort of thing. But this is one of ink and blood.
It is. It is. The thing is, if you know me, you'll know that my favorite genre is horror. I don't know why, but actually I think I do know why. With horror and psychological thrillers, it's not boy meets girl, boy and girl fall in love, boy and girl gets married. It's what's happening in this person's mind to make them do something so twisted. And I think when you ask those questions, because I also listen to a lot of true crime, and when you look at the background of serial killers and criminals that commit heinous acts, you realize that it's something more complex than them just wanting to be evil. And I think I really wanted to experiment with that in my own way. I don't think we've ever seen it much locally, and so I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could do it and do it well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And challenge you did, because it's reported that this is the first of its type by a female writer.
Yes. From Guyana.
In
Guyana, yes.
In Guyana, yeah. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Pushing yourself, yes. That's why I'm asking what was going through your mind. Apart from that, let me just rephrase that. Character driven. You want it to be create a character.
Yes.
A distinct something.
I did, yes.
Right. How did you go about this? Creating this character. And added to that, somewhere along in one of the writers' classes, that for you to do good character sketch, read crime fiction.
Yes, yes. So I absolutely, first and foremost, I am well immersed in that genre. So if you see my bookshelf, you'll probably be a little worried about me. So, but I just find it interesting. Again, the psychology of it all. Mm-hmm. But specifically to John LEECH, the titular character. When I was studying for my bachelor's at the University of London, my bachelor's in English, we were immersing ourselves in a lot of that content, the British literature, English literature. And, I was just fascinated by that language, and I was even fascinated by the time. And so that is where the period piece type focus came from. Part of the book is set in 1800s London. Mm-hmm. And so that I pulled little pieces of inspiration. So that's the inspiration for the setting. For the character itself, Jack the Ripper, the very first recorded serial killer in history. Uh-huh. Initially, I wanted to do Jack the Ripper and my own story, naming him Jack the Ripper, mm-hmm. but I realized that that's a community of its own, and I didn't want to trouble that too much. So I said, okay, I've got more room to play around with. Let me see what I can do with my own villain. And they actually operated in the same time, and it's mentioned in the book, because while he's active doing his mischief, so is the mention of Jack the Ripper, who's mm-hmm. doing his stuff in the East End as well. So it was interesting to put the two in the same place. And then I also did an homage in a way. I named him John Thomas Reginald LEECH. And JTR is Jack the Ripper, the abbreviation. And so that was my little Easter egg there. I still got a little bit of my Ripper in there.
Yeah, good for you. Because throughout the text, you've been dropping, little hints, references to, like Grayson. You're always there.
Yes.
Oscar Wilde, Dorian Gray.
Dorian Gray, yes.
Right.
And again, those are works that I went through in school.
Home is Home.
Yes. That was also a direct reference because I wanted to put her in the home of a writer. And so I named it Homer's Home for Health and Wellness. I mean, it was the irony of having a writer check herself into a mental facility named after Homer. So that was just, I really had fun playing around with connecting different literary references.
Yeah. Apart from the references, we said earlier you played around with names.
Yes.
Like the doctor.
Yes, Oscar Pressum.
Yeah.
So Pressum, Oscar turned out to be one of the more persistent characters. In fact, he was supposed to be a side character, just helping her to find out if you're really going crazy or if this person really possessed you, right? So, but character-led, that's where I really learned about your characters leading you, because after writing certain scenes, I realized, Oscar has more to do here. And so he kept moving through. And, so his name really references the persistence of everything. He's pressing on, Dr. Pressum. So that's where his name came from. Yeah.
I'm worried about you.
I think a few people are worried about me because I think in my wardrobe and in my art and different things, you see bright pinks and greens and blues. And then in my work, there's this dark book. So, yes.
There's something bothering me also.
What's that?
The way that you inserted yourself in the book. You said that was something that writers deal with.
Yeah.
Writing, publishing, getting good editors,
Yes.
and things like that. It can drive you crazy.
It almost did. It almost did. I took 12 years to get this book done. It's only 250 pages, but 12 years is what I took. The thing is, I started writing thinking that it was a straightforward process. I would just write beginning, middle, end. But then I realized that if you wanted to do it and do it well, there is a structure that you have to follow. There are resources that you need to reach out to. There is support that you need. And there's also a budget that you need to have, believe it or not. And many of those things were not available to me immediately. And so across the 12 years after I started to write in 2013, there were a lot of starts and stops, not excluding some criticism that I think was not helpful. And some of that comes out in the book as well. There were some frustrations because I think people didn't really give it a chance. And so you see some of those frustrations coming out in Ariane's work, and it kind of drives her to the desperation of following and connecting with this clandestine person. He's just this very dark and suspicious person. This is the last person you should be trusting with your name and your fame and your work. But she was so desperate because she had gotten so many disappointments. In fact, when she met him in the book, she was coming off of just yet another rejection. And so she said, you know what, this is my break. I'm going to take it. And well, to her detriment.
Well, it's a story pattern that is sort of familiar,
Yeah.
especially in horror stories, selling your soul to the devil.
Oh, yes. Yes.
How much of that you did?
I didn't. I certainly didn't. But Ariane did. So I think it's just, I took those frustrations and I channeled it into something. She did not have that outlet, and it's kind of a cautionary tale that this is, sometimes you have all of these stresses and grievances, and there's nowhere else to let it out. So as a writer, thankfully, I'm able to create a world with those frustrations, and this is the outcome. Yeah. But definitely no selling. What I did though, and again, that's why it took so long. I wanted to do it right. and I wanted to get the right help. And so much of that help came from overseas, where I know that the resources were firm and well recommended, and so they didn't disappoint.
Yeah. You talk about structure, and we've talked so much around the book. What is the book about? Quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
The book is about a self-proclaimed genius called John LEECH. He was dissatisfied, I would say, with the fact that he was not getting enough recognition for his genius, right? And he decided that he was going to take his own life and end it all. But when he thought that was the end, he inexplicably returned in some form to modern day New York, where he was drawn to this Guyanese author. She is a migrant along with her parents, and so they migrated from Guyana. And he's drawn to her because in his past life, he loved a woman who ran away to British Guyana after finding out about his evil deeds. And so Ariane is the descendant. But after agreeing to write his story, he takes control of her, and she goes berserk and locks herself away. And so the rest of the story really delves into finding out if she is telling the truth or if she is really crazy, cuckoo.
The connection, the Guyana connection. I
Yes.
like that.
Yes, it was absolutely necessary, of course.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like, because I started by saying, welcome to another adventure in Guyanese literature. And it just landed nicely. This is a daughter of Guyanese parents,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah.
Yes. So one of the things that also inspired me was my parents' experience as migrants. So they live in the United States, and so traveling from there at an older age and having to have that culture shock. The stories they told me, the experiences they had, they were very interesting. And so I put some of that in there. You know, they were a bit reluctant with modern science. You know, her mother was a bit more traditional. She believed in prayer. And so that juxtaposition is what I played around with as well. But of course, still weaving in Guyanese, strong enough, I want to say, you know, without necessarily putting a whole bunch of Creolese or, you know, too many references. I think that there's a good balance of Guyanese-ness in the book.
Having all this knowledge about writing, it still took you a long time.
It did.
It was trying, it was challenging. It led to self-publishing.
Yes.
Why self-publishing?
Precisely because of the thing is, you know, when I came down to the very end of the book, all of my editors explained to me, because I had multiple editors on this process. You learn that one editor is never enough. You need at least two editors, one developmental, one copy editing. I had the honor of having 3 developmental editors because of the time, right? There are a lot of inconsistencies you have to work through. But all of my editors kept saying, you know, this has international potential. You know, you should send it out to some agents. And I kind of took the middle ground. I did send it out to agents when I was finished the manuscript. I selected 10 agents who said, you know, they were looking for persons of color, stories from persons of color, stories from the Caribbean, stories from women. And the responses all came back the same. Oh, this is compelling, but it's not for us. And this sounds great, but it's not for us. And I realized
But you did your research, yeah.
I did. But, you know, I realized it's a very subjective industry. When I looked at the stats even, you know, it was already very low. And it's not that I couldn't get through, but I just needed to put in another 2 years at least. Now, after I spent 11 years writing and getting a draft that I was happy with, I was not happy, or I was not comfortable, I would say, putting that up to somebody else's scrutiny. I needed to bring this to an end, or I needed to bring this to life, let's say, on my terms. And so I researched self-publishing, and I realized that in this current age, even traditionally published authors have to do the bulk of the marketing because of how we consume content now. People want to see them. And so even the traditionally published authors, they're on Facebook, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, and they're working. So at this point, you really can't tell the difference, right? So for me, I did self-publishing. I ensured that I did the best version possible, the most professional editing that you can have, and I also invested in my own marketing. And the upside is, as far as I see, I get the profits. There's no one to share those profits with, so...
Did you, by any chance, tap into AI?